I'm here with Zak Schwank, and Zak and I have known each other for, I don't know, probably 8, maybe 10 years, even on the social Twitter sphere. Followed each other for who knows what reason, but um, Zak and I, over the course of the last couple of years, have spoken more and talked more since he's become city councilman with the city of Temecula. And I thought it would be really interesting to talk to him about what his role is as a city councilman, how he got to this point, what it's been like the past 3.5 years, 2 years,
Only 2 years,
only
yeah.
2 years since he's been on the council, and what you're actually voting for when you're voting for a city council candidate. I think a lot of that gets misconstrued in the rhetoric of today's politics, and I think people lose track of what you're actually voting for. So Zak, tell me a little bit about, how long have you lived here? Um, you don't have to tell me any details about what you do or who you love or anything like that, but I'm interested in your experience here in Temecula.
Yeah, well, thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it. Our family's lived in Temecula since 2001. We have 3 kids. We have a daughter in high school, and then 2 boys, one in middle and one in elementary school. Jennifer is an elementary school teacher at Temecula Elementary School, and I have, for the most part of the time that we've lived in Temecula, I've been a stay-at-home parent. I was an electrician for a number of years and commuting out of the city, but when our daughter was born, I decided to stay home. Some of the things that make me tick are just having that good connection to our community, being involved. Obviously, our family started Temecula Bike Train. It's widely known that I do love bikes, and that is true. I do love to bike around and try to convince you to get on a bike every once in a while and meet you for a burrito. So maybe we can make that happen someday soon.
Possibly.
But we're just as a family here in the city, we just like to be involved and like to contribute and be a part of what's going on in our town.
And your family was involved in Palumbo's, correct?
That's true, yeah. So my aunt and uncle, my uncle had a restaurant in San Diego in Imperial Beach. His father had a restaurant in Imperial Beach and Chula Vista, and my aunt Edie and Paul had a restaurant in Bonita. It was called Palumbo's. And when we moved up here, they came up and visited us shortly after we moved up here, and immediately fell in love with the city and moved up here. And then they moved their business here in the early days of Old Town when it was just starting to take off. And so they had a restaurant, Palumbo's Restaurante, on 5th Street in Old Town for many years. And they are in retirement now. They sold it, it seems like only a year ago, but it was probably a couple of years ago they sold it. Yeah.
Okay. So you've been around Temecula for a long time. You've seen the way the city has grown, probably more, the modern version of what Temecula is, more so than the olden days, as some of the longtime residents would say. So you at some point decided that I should get more involved civically within my community, and you joined, I think it was the Parks Commission. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Community Services Commission. Yeah, it was volunteering time at our kids' school and being involved in PTA and then just getting a little more involved in local government and going to meetings and going to council meetings and just sort of seeing what's on the agenda and really sort of trying to be more involved. And there was an opening on Community Services Commission, and I applied for that and was appointed and served just about 6 years on that commission before I was elected in 2018 to council.
What in the world made you think city council would be a good idea? Did
well,
you
at the time,
before you decided to do this? Did you
oh,
converse with
absolutely.
her? And despite
Yeah, no,
despite her reservations, you decided to do it anyway?
So Jennifer is the most supportive person of anything I want to do and anything our family do. We're definitely a team. And there were a lot of conversations prior to even really genuinely considering running for city council, because it isn't a decision that I took lightly, and certainly Jennifer didn't take lightly. I mentioned earlier, we have 3 kids, and to have 3 kids all in school and all living at home and try to tackle the responsibility and the role of a council member was something that we thought long and hard about. But like I said, Jennifer is very supportive, and we thought it was is a good next step for me, just personally, moving from the commission to the council. It was definitely something worth trying and running for council.
Okay. So that brings me to the crux of what I wanted to talk about today, was understanding a little bit more, and you still being a relatively new council member. You've gone through the learning curve of adjusting to the role, which I would imagine the last 2 years haven't been the most easy landscape to negotiate as a new council person, or as somebody at this level at a city this size. Hasn't been easy. But what's that been like? Like, what's that learning curve been like?
It's very steep. I think, you touch on something. In the last 2 years, the last year especially has been extremely difficult as any elected official. I don't think there's been a more difficult time in our community and in our region and forever, honestly. I think it's been extremely tough, having to deal with COVID. Obviously, firstly, that's huge, and then the issues of racism and equity and diversity, and having a sitting mayor resign in the middle of my second year was difficult. And it's the first time that's ever happened. It's certainly been tough, but when you think about running for office, at least when I thought about running for office, when it's good, it's good, and you can't always bank on it being good forever. So we knew that there would be issues. There would be times when it would be hard, and personally, it's not something that we shy away from. We tackle that head on. I look at every opportunity as an individual and as a council member to learn and to be better. And so while it's been hard on a day-to-day basis, and we've had to adapt a little bit, I still I take each day. I don't take that for granted. I realize the role that I'm in, and I respect that role, and still contribute to the best of my ability every day at this level.
Well, and I think part of what I wanted to try to get across in this video was that being a city council member is not a 2-day-a-month job. And that's one of the things I wanted to get across. But there's a lot more to it. It's an everyday sort of 24/7 experience, with work that involves things that are outside of the realm of even Temecula, but have substantial effects on how Temecula moves forward and progresses in your district. Like, so tell me a little bit about like what it is you do as a city council person, and then I'll get to the other question.
Yeah, so there's no time clock, right? Like, I don't go into City Hall and punch a time clock, but to say that it is a few hours here, a few hours there would just be disingenuous. It is all day, every day. Whether it's trying to reply to constituents' emails, or getting information from our city manager or from some of the other directors, and or whether it's going to an external meeting. And personally, I'm on RTA on that board. I'm on the SCAG board, Animal Friends of the Valley. So there's all these external components that have an impact on our city, but are outside of the boundaries, like you mentioned. And then there's subcommittee meetings. Everything we do is via subcommittee. So there's subcommittee meetings on whether it's public art or whether it's an infrastructure project or whether it's community services. But much like anything, you get out what you put into it. So I don't show up on every other Tuesday and sort of go through the motions. We have a closed session item tomorrow that on Friday we got a very large document dump, if you will, to go through to be prepared for some of the issues that are coming forward in our city. So it's a lot of reading. It's a lot of sort of trying to parse things out and really sort of try to understand the nuances of a lot of the things that the city does. So it's very involved.
Well, we're in such an interesting time politically, and I would argue, and I do argue, that politics really don't have much to do with being on a city council, as far as our society is currently dealing with the struggle of partisan politics and how we interact with each other. But in city council, I would say, how much does that even play into a city council decision? I mean, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, or how you feel about national issues almost never comes into play, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it isn't anything that for me on a daily basis that I even think about. There's nothing inherently political about whether or not we slurry seal a road, or whether what we're doing with a park or a playground enhancement, or what other capital improvement projects are coming forward. Or like tomorrow, I have a public art subcommittee meeting, and that's not a political item. So there isn't anything inherently political about our positions and the decisions that we ultimately make on a daily basis for the over 100,000 residents that come from a variety of backgrounds and diverse backgrounds. So it's not political.
And that's important to note, like for people that are voting on things. City council seats, there are 2 seats up in Temecula, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's important to realize, while there is a tremendous amount of campaigning going on by both sides, you have one district that's probably raised more money than ever before in a local city council district. And a lot of that could be seen as viewed as a political in nature as to why that money has been raised. But when you're voting for somebody to fill a city council seat, you're not voting for a political party. You're voting for the best person suited to perform that job, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, that is the goal, right? The goal is to hire the best people. So the people have the obligation to hire the best people to do the job moving forward for our entire city. If someone's looking to vote for someone for purely political reasons, they're going to be in for a rude awakening when they actually get to council, because there's inherently nothing political about the decisions that we're making.
And we could cite several examples where that has sort of tried to creep in and that hasn't really ended well. So, I mean, from my standpoint, I've seen it a couple times where people try to slide certain subjects and resolutions into that just really don't have a place at that level. And really, when you're hiring somebody to represent your district on the city council, you want to find somebody that's going to truly represent all of the inhabitants of your district, not just the ones that are Republican and not just the ones that are Democrat. And the sheer amount of things that the city council deals with on a daily basis that do not have anything to do with a political standpoint or a viewpoint. You're almost, once you get there, you'll figure out real quick that, like, I'm not going to be able to get a word in edgewise about what I believe about national politics. It's not going to happen. And so, making an educated decision for what's best for the city going forward is crucial, and it can't be based in flag waving or, you know, grandstanding, right? You agree with that?
No, absolutely. And I think if you look at it, from a 10,000-foot perspective of what it takes to run a city, it takes 5 people to cohesively get along and manage city staff and provide services for the entire city, which again is a very diverse group of people, right? Like there's no just oh, we're just going to do it this way. I mean, there is a desire, at least on my part, when I go to City Hall or when I'm having a meeting or when I'm doing anything related to City Hall, is to genuinely care about and think about everyone in my district, because ultimately I was elected by people in District 5, but the entire city as a whole. And I think that's really important going forward, to keep that balance and to keep that understanding of it matters how we act, it matters what we do, what we say, it matters regionally, building relationships regionally on the various boards that you're on, or wanting to do projects and wanting to come together collectively as a region is important. So again, I don't know that, well, again, you're going to be disappointed to find out that there's nothing political about it. But let's say, is that really what we want for our city? Do we really want to bring in some of that partisan politics into a local government? It has no place anyways, but it's not healthy.
Right.
I don't view it as healthy.
And alienate people more than you connect with them, right? If everybody knows their role. Now, I'm not one of those people that thinks everybody should go in and just completely cooperate. And I hate a 5-0 vote more than anybody, thanks to my friend Dan. So there are ways in which to get things that you think are important for your district and for the city going forward, that may be unique to the council, that don't exist on the council currently. And then there are ways to alienate people really quickly. I agree to an extent that there needs to be cooperation between the council and city staff, but there needs to be a healthy amount of friction as well. But when all there is friction, nothing gets done. Correct? That's going to be a pretty tough ask for a council member that's coming in to, push a personal agenda above all else, and really take some of that rhetoric from the street corner and bring it into the dais, is going to do more damage than good in the long run, is my assumption, the way I see it, and I assume you do too.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And at the end of the day, if we're going to see 2 new council members in a couple of weeks, and you need 3 votes to move something forward. So it's all about building relationships. And I'm not opposed to the 5-0 votes as much as you are. I go in and I look at the items that we're discussing, and I'm reasonable, and I'm trying to be a moderating voice in a lot of ways with some of the things that we've had to deal with in the last couple of years. And I just think if someone's going to come in with a purely partisan political agenda, it's just not going to go over very well. You've mentioned it. The public will push back on that pretty quickly if that starts to happen, and in council as well. I'm not there to be political in any way. City council seats are nonpartisan, and I believe, and I'm speaking genuinely when I say this, that when I go in again to City Hall, are the things I've never brought in personal political beliefs into decisions that I make. I look at the evidence, I look at the facts, I look at where we're going, I look at what we need to do, and try to make a decision in the best interest of the entire city.
Okay. Well, thank you, Zach, for doing so, even though I don't live in your district and I don't get to vote. So I'm unbiased in this. But thank you for taking a little bit of time to do this. And that's something I think is important for people to note as they go to cast their votes. Did you vote already, Zach?
You know what? I voted already. I made a video showing people that I voted. I'm telling everybody to vote. The numbers, those early voting numbers, are just off the chart. So, yes,
Okay. And you would say it's a good idea for people that can vote. They should vote, correct?
I think everybody should vote.
The people that are registered legally should vote.
If you were mailed a ballot by the registrar, you should vote.
It has your name on it. Yes.
Your name, yes.
Okay.
All yes.
Well, thank you, Zach. I appreciate the time.
Hey, my pleasure.
Pretty painless, right?
No, let's do this again, man. Let's we can. I mean, we have the technology. Let's do it again.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Jeff.